Welcome to the afternoon session, The Perils of Building Before Market Validation. So, I would imagine everybody have heard about Steve Blank at the Lean Startup. So from that movement, this idea that a startup is an organization formed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Yeah. So adding a level of technical risk then makes that experiment even riskier. So a big part of this talk is the idea that you want to use the investors to grow. And technical solutions fall into this category. If you have a business experiment that is working, then you can get investors' money to improve the technical aspects. So, of course, then the idea is to validate the business idea before engaging people to build it. This concept comes quite against my background, that is building things. Yes, I did a PhD in New York, where I built a system for medical and intelligence analysis. I work at IBM Research, and I helped build the IBM Watson Jeopardy system. And I have been consulting for almost a decade in AI startups, and I have built many products. By now, after this experience, I find my help can be much better stated to offer fractional CTO VP of research services with a focus of building less and succeeding more. And this is the topic we'll explore on the talk. And in the particular case of AI, it's quite possible to do these things called concierge MVPs, where we are taking a problem, and if a human can solve it, we can start providing the services just using humans. Therefore, we are validating the business idea with humans. Of course, there are AI startups that try to solve things that humans cannot solve. Well, in that case, my take is that, well, if you're doing a startup like that, you better have that solution already, like you are commercializing research results. Otherwise, you are not really a startup, you are a research venture, and you should treat it like that and try to find government, foundations, grants, other type of funding, because then you have 100% technical risk. So what it means to do things with humans instead of AI is this whole idea of crowd workers, like the Amazon Mechanical Turk, or the general term of Wizard of Oz systems where you believe that you're interacting with a computer, but in reality there is you have to disregard the person behind the curtain, yes. Or in product validation, the circle is called concierge MVP. One of the interesting things about this is that there are a number of AI startups that there is a rumor on the street that they are doing this. It's a big secret because it brings very bad press. So, in a way, I'm advocating for building two systems, an AI prototype that works but is not a product to attract venture capital funding, and a product that works but has not much AI that to validate traction. Companies are built out of people, and one of the big problems of trying to build early has to do with what happens with the hiring. Yes, many times when people start building an AI startup, they hire top AI engineers, and that actually get them burned, because these people want to do AI. They don't want to, say, manage crowd workers. And AI is a very competitive field, so people really need to stay on board and use exciting state-of-the-art technology to stay hireable. So it's very common to do kind of keyboard stuffing, where you add more technology than needed, so you can showcase that you use that technology professionally. But these complex solutions are harder to maintain and are maybe untested, pose a higher risk. So don't build something people won't buy. Yes, that will leave you with a lot of what is called technical debt. Every time you pivot, you end up with a lot of dead code and very poor architectural decisions. If you can do those pivots without much technology behind them, then you can come up with an architecture for the solution that is really catered to the problem. And the other issue is sunk costs. After all those pivots, you end up keeping offerings just because you already pay for building them. But those offerings are poorly validated, yes, may not actually be profitable in the long run. But even more so, do not build an excellent system that people won't buy. This is very common. Engineers are driven to excellence. But that adds a ton of extra stress for no reason. And you lose trust on your first hires and technical co-founders. A common expression you hear among engineers in meetups and stuff is, we had a great product, it was a failure of the marketing department. Yes, this is a very self-serving phrase because, well, if it didn't sell, it wasn't a great product. Yes, it is just by its definition. And the idea that blaming the business side or the marketing side, it's like, I believe that validating the product is everybody's responsibility, particularly in a startup. So then you end up with this crash and burn, not necessarily on the money side, but really at the people side. So that's why I advocate to slide into AI. But if you have this two-system scenario, again, it's a people problem. If you have a part of the company that is solving the problem with humans and another part that is building an AI solution, you need to be very careful how to manage that. If you make the AI under the human-based computation side, they will never say they are ready to do the handover. So in a sense, you need to have both organizations parallel and negotiate with them the handouts, and also migrate people out of the crowd working managing to the customer support. I mean, once you have people managing 50 people doing the crowd annotations, it's going to be very hard to stop them doing that. I mean, they will have a lot of power within the organization. Okay, so if you can free money from building the AI products, what to use it? Yes. Well, you can run experiments to find out whether there is traction. And I have a small primer on product validation. And if there is traction, then you can use it to acquire more customers. Advertisement, endorsement, case studies. An AI engineer can cost easily above $100K. That's a lot of money that can be used to get more traction. So I have included here some recap from one of my favorite books on validating product ideas. Is the Tomer Sharon 2016, Validating Product Ideas Through Lean User Research. It's based on 200 interviews with product managers, and it's quite evidence-based. It boils down to understanding the users outside of the specific product, figuring out the want, and evaluating the design. So this is the book is driven by questions like understanding the user is what do people need, who are these people, how they currently solve a problem. This is a very, very common mistake of saying, oh, there is no technology like this in the market. Well, but people are solving the problem some other way. And what is their workflow? What people want in a solution, and can people use the product? Interestingly, can people use the product is what people normally believe when they hear UX research. But these are the questions that are fundamental to startups. So you can build that product. Like many times when people approach engineers, they say, can you do this? And engineers are very proud, so they will say, yes, we can do it. But the question is really, should you do it? And here there is a technique, very interesting technique called experience sampling, where you recruit people, usually you pay them, and you ask them during several times a day to write down the answer to a question. Like, let's say, the last message you sent on social media was how long it was, or it's mostly about how their internal state. What was the last thing that made you upset in social media, for example? Yes. You have to, finding that question is the key problem here. But when you ask the same question to many people multiple times a day over a period of time, you have a volume of data over which you can do quantitative and qualitative analysis and really understand what do they need. And you're not asking them whether they want the solution that you have in mind in your product. This will actually help you understand what are their problems regarding to that domain. There is this idea of making personas, yes, for marketing and user research purposes. One of the issues is that companies in general, the groups make the personas based on their own intuitions, and those intuitions tend to be very far from the truth. So instead, you can make these personas, and from there make hypotheses, and then actually interview people, real people. Sit them across a room and have a conversation with them, and then you will realize that all these personas that you build initially are very far from the actual users you have. Yes, without this understanding of the population, you may just be tempted to build a Franken product that has everything for no one. And then this question about how people currently solve the problem, yes? This is very, very interesting, the point that the lean startup methodology is all about iterations. But if you're starting from a solution that doesn't include what people are doing right now, you will iterate, but you'll never get anywhere. And so here, the way to understand how people solve the problem is this technique of observation, also known as fly on the wall. You try to immerse with people on their day, and when they have that problem, see how they address it. And you can then uncover what happened and why it happened. An example that is not in this book is another one. It says, company make a robot to sort socks after you do the laundry. And they say, well, many people who care about that just buy the socks. And so they don't need any robot, yes? And then what is the user workflow? Yes, people in technology many times try to make systems that are easy to program, but actually require people to change the way they go about their day. And therefore, people don't want to use them. For that, there is a technique called a diary study, where the users document their activities, thoughts, and opinions over a period of time. And then you can use visualization, maps, etc. The key question once you have a product in mind is do people want it? And here the key aspect is not to ask them whether they want it, but see their behavior. And the concierge MVP is this thing I was mentioning before about using humans to do it. The other one is a very established advice in startups, the fake door experiment. You make a landing page, buy now, you click a button, and it says, well, join the waiting list, yes? But the fact that people click a button and say buy now already gives you the idea that they are doing something. And one of the fascinating things is that it's very hard for people to understand what they want. Like, even if you ask them, they will say something, but they really don't know. Well, what they do is a much clearer indicator. And this helps also the marketing aspect of the product. And then you get to the usual issues of UX research about where people, once you have a whole product design, whether it's usable. And you can use usability testing, particularly online, through online services. Yep. And the darling of user research, that is A/B testing. You have two different versions. I mean, these are all well understood things. The key aspect is more about validating the product idea. I have here also a small AI primer. It's a little like a bonus on the presentation. So AI in general involves three different type of systems: rule-based systems, that is just a lot of programming; feature-based system, what is called like machine learning, is statistical and is used quite a bit in data science; and then deep learning systems that use tons of data, tons of processing. They use a lot of GPUs. It's a state of the art and it's very expensive. And these days, because deep learning is making such a fantastic inroads, there is a lot of focus on the research. But if you want to have a system on production, you have to understand there is a hierarchy of results that are communicated in the scientific world. The first one is white papers that are rush notes of new discoveries. These are not peer-reviewed, so are full of claims that are not quite believable, and they are not accepted scientific discoveries. Then you have peer-reviewed papers in conference, in journals, so they normally tone down their claims quite a bit, but still might not be reproducible, yes? And also the error rate tends to be very high, yes? It's a state of the art for science. That error rate is not enough to build a product many times. And then you have things that come in textbooks. This is established technology ready for adoption. The error rate might still be too high, but it's really understood. So you might be able to program, to make your business around that error rate. My advice is always build startups based on things that come in textbooks. Curiously, I get contracts where people come to me with white papers, and I'm like, no, it's like, you don't want to crash and burn that badly. All right, so Ralph has asked me to give a small talk, so this is what I have. Validate before you build, and if you need help reining on your desire to just build, that's my company. Thank you very much. To respect the privacy of the attendees, I have no video recording from the QA that follow the talk. But one question in particular deserves to be included in this video. It relates to how to do validation for business-to-business startups. For that, I defer to the excellent book by my friend Etienne Arbugli, Lean B2B. This book has just been updated for its second edition. The thing with business-to-business is that it has its own unique problems, yes, and in a way, business-to-business is based on developing long-lasting relations with very few customers. Therefore, your initial set of customers can really make or break the startup. You are better off choosing carefully, and like that, there is plenty of other unique problems with business-to-business that you can explore on Etienne's book. Thank you very much.